Hey guys, Crowbar Zero here, and version 27 just dropped, and there's a lot of stuff in there. But I will say before I go too crazy on talking about all the new stuff, there's a new aspect that's really going to help out a lot of the creator community. It's kind of in its early infancy stage, so they're still ironing out some bugs here and there. But either on the store's website or right in the game, there's a creator code section. So if you click that, you can put in, whoever you want to support, and then after you do that, any purchases that you make within 30 days is going to be targeted towards that specific creator. So it helps us it helps us out a lot, to be honest. Probably a lot more than YouTube on its own. So, and it doesn't require anything from you other than just putting it in, and it scratches our back quite a bit. I'm thinking later on, if it gets to the point where we're able to see kind of like the player ID of who's buying, what, I can say, okay, maybe I'll do a split of like, here, let's do a giveaway, and maybe I'll do like 2/3 towards the people that are helping supporting me, and then maybe like a third towards the people that just the general public. I'm not sure how I want to do that exactly, but I know down the road I plan on using this to help give back to the community. So I think it's just right. If the community scratches my back, I should scratch theirs. And I might be able to, with some of the money that comes in from this, maybe I can actually convince my wife, hey, maybe a part-time little gig of editing videos and making stuff look really, really cool on this channel. So cross my fingers. We'll see how that pans out. But enough about, oh, and my creator code is crowrocks. So, all lowercase. I'll put that in the description. But anyway, so I wanted to really talk about, what do I think, how is the meta going to be changing? And I think it varies drastically on, based on the new content that's come out. Give me a moment. There were some fires in the area, and for the past like week or so I've been coughing, but trying to avoid that as much as possible. But so I guess to start out, one of the big major changes, even though it was like a small cliff note in the patch notes, is that any of the enemies in Black Hole, regardless if they're immune or not, are now going to receive the coin bonus. That's huge. That allows tier 17, 18, and beyond to all be farmable. Thank goodness. And now we've got new tiers, 19, 20, 21. Really cool on that. And with some of those, we've got new milestones to unlock. That includes, labs, and the main thing that unlocks that most people are concerned about are assist mods. And this is my current setup. And I'm just going to kind of walk through a little bit of this on why I have certain things. And then I'm going to kind of leave it open as far as, where do I see value going forward. So starting out right now, I've got all the slots except for the armor slot unlocked. I'm actually going to hold off on unlocking this until after I get the mastery for the AoE card. So there's a new card that unlocks with the milestones. It expands the AoE of some of your damage modules. Just pop that up so we can go over that really fast. At max, before the mastery, gives a 25% bonus to the radius. That's inner landmines, poison swamps, smart missiles, flamebot, landmines. Flamebot, it's nice, but landmines, it's gonna be kind of useless. And flamebot specifically because trying to mark enemies for the damage reduction. The other ones I'm more concerned about the damage aspect. So yeah. Eventually, I think getting this is going to be required to really push higher waves in order to combat the new enemy type, which are fleets. They have a huge impact. There's, I'm gonna go back to the assist mods in just a little bit. So we got saboteurs, commanders, and overcharges. Saboteurs are fast little buggers with boss level HP. They'll land on your wall or on your tower, and they just kind of stick there. If it's against your tower itself, it's going to disable one of your ultimate weapons. So you're going to want a variety of them just in case that does happen. You know, basically, you want a backup plan. But if they land on your wall, if your wall's up, it's not going to really do any damage to your wall, but it will receive a little bit of thorns damage. So wall thorns is really nice. If you want to keep these guys off of your, you know, just in case wall pops, you know, you want that wall thorns just to take them out as quickly as possible. Yeah. In general, these guys are 50% resistant to crowd control effects, so that includes Chronofield and Chronofield Plus. Yikes. So because this guy has like ×2 speed, while the commanders I think are like half speed, overcharges are 1x speed. These guys are just gonna like boop, they're on your tower or on your wall, and hopefully you can kill them fast. After they die though, it turns on your ultimate weapons, but if it disables like one of your main things, like let's see you're farming and GT got disabled, well, you're making absolutely no coin while this guy is sitting on your tower. So really, really frustrating. You want a lot of different tools to be able to deal with these guys, and a really good wall, hopefully. Either damage to keep them off your wall, or enough damage so the wall's not going to fall. And then when wall falls, you're just going to assume that you're pretty much SOL at that point. Commanders. These guys spawn with a bunch of tanks. It doesn't say this here, but they spawn with a bunch of tanks. And every second, they basically overheal tanks by whatever the tank's HP, or any of the enemy's HP is. So if it's, you know, tanks, really, especially ultimate tanks, because they effectively have boss level health, and then you're like, here's extra more boss level health. It gets pretty insane. These guys are pretty nasty, but because they spawn with a bunch of extra tanks, in a way, it's like, okay, here's a tough money grab. If you can kill him quickly, here's a nice reward as a result. You know, as far as just on the coin aspect. I'll talk about the other aspects in a little bit. Overcharges, these guys are kind of like rays, but instead of stopping at your range line, they stop a little bit beyond your range line, just like commanders do. And then I think it's like if they get shot with bullets, which would probably be bounce shots, or maybe it's just damage in general, I don't know. They'll shoot back at you, and each subsequent shot does double damage. These guys are nasty for both effective hit point build and glass cannon build. The biggest thing that I've noticed, like, to counter these guys is be able to kill them before they reach that stop point before your range line. And that's why I think specifically for these guys, you want that AoE card and the AoE mastery as high as possible because these guys need to die as soon as possibly can, which kind of sucks. It puts you in a really rough spot, but of like, especially for like higher tiers, because you're like, okay, here's the armor to protect them to a certain point, hopefully to get them close. Whereas these guys, you want to kill them farther away. So, yeah. It's a tough trade-off. But as far as like the trade-off, you know, that's kind of the big stick that we got to make things, you know, shorter. The carrot that we got is these guys drop a massive ton of reroll shards. Like, you know, 1,000 plus. Super, super helpful. For, you know, re-rolling all your modules, all that jazz. On top of that, they have a chance of dropping module shards. And it goes up the higher the tiers are. So you want these guys. It's a carrot and a stick scenario. The plus side also is these guys are going to make tournaments a little bit harder, so it's going to be harder to progress. So your tournaments are going to be, as a result, shorter than they used to be. For everybody. Not just you, but for everybody. But on the plus side, it's like, oh, I can get back to farming afterwards. As far as dealing with these guys, I can see a meta emerging where part of the time you're farming coins, and then maybe part of the time at the high end, you're trying to push like the highest possible tier to get as many of these guys killed as possible, just so you can get the module shard drops as well. You know, and the reroll shards, but the module shard drop I think will be a nice little currency that people might elect to switch off of coins specifically for. I don't know. But given all of that, given that I just talked about the AoE card, you can kind of guess like, okay, I can see why Crow is going for, you know, really high range, just boom, blast everything out of the water, which is kind of really weird. Usually everything wants to be more of like Fang Surgeon. You know, you want to kill enemies in specific areas only kind of strat. For the very high end, that might not be what you want anymore. Though I think that there is going to be a fine line as far as, you know, farming like tier 18 and beyond. There's probably going to be thresholds of where people want to get their armor stripping so that they can maximize that, minimize the risks of overcharged, just sniping you out. Because right now I'm seeing a variation of like, I'll stop at wave 6k, or I'll stop at like wave 7 or 8k. So there's a huge variation, mostly because that overcharge type enemy. So we'll see what emerges as far as a meta dealing with those for farming, you know, as well as, you know, something that's also balanced for tournament performance as well. And that's just kind of talk about like a glass cannon. There's also, it seems like hybrid is becoming a lot more, it's looking a lot more appealing. So right now it's big Q damage that enemies are doing. Flamebot now has extra levels. So in my other setup, which I don't think I can't change it. It maxes out at 95%. Fortunately I can't switch out my preset during the middle of a run, but you would definitely see that if I had enough medals. But, yeah. So you can get some damage reduction from Flamebot that really gets up there. Chain Lightning Thunder I don't think is reliable yet. I'm hoping it gets to a point where it's like maybe you do a percent of the wave damage to an enemy instead of like their total max HP, and maybe that gives life back into Chain Lightning Thunder. I don't know. I'm hoping that things also grow in the hybrid realm. Um, but I'm a little bit focused on Glass Cannon specifically because, as you can see here, there's only one source of extra effective hit points. It's doubling these up. Whereas on the cannon and the core side, you're basically getting like, oh, hey, here's two extra sources where you're only getting one extra source from the armor side. So I think an end game is still going to be glass cannon, but there's going to be definitely an extended hybrid stage that's going to be made available due to this. So assist mods, or commonly called ass mods, unlock around tier 19. I think it's wave 40. And you can go in and you can unlock them. They're 1,000 each. Doesn't increase if you get other slots. So kind of like card mastery, it's just fixed, which is really nice. So currently I have, as you can see, cannon, generator, and core unlocked. And I think there are some values, like, depending on what's going in here. So, like, eventually I would probably want to get the unique effect from my assist mod for generator, up so I could expand the range, assuming I was using this. So instead of plus 5 meters, it would go up to plus 15. That would be kind of cool. But for now, these are good enough. Overall, this whole pool, if you want to max out everything, is extremely expensive. It's like 8k stones, or no, 80k stones, I've been told. So, super expensive. And as far as the multiplier efficiency and the substat efficiency, stones will raise this up by 70, up to 70%. And then you can get the other 30% from doing the labs. The labs are also incredibly expensive. It starts at like 200 small Q or somewhere around there. So probably really worthwhile to slot in lab efficiency, or not lab efficiency, lab discount. Because once you spend those coins on labs, they're gone. So I think this is because of the dramatic cost in the labs for these, you'll want that raised up as much as possible. And right now I'm at like level 70. And still trying to climb it up as high as I can. So there's kind of two ways to think about where you want your levels. There's one method that I have shown here. Whether it's right or wrong, that's up to you, and that's probably going to be, depending on the slot. So, to be perfectly honest, probably on my cannon slot, this is not the ideal setup versus my slot over here. I want to be able to access as many of the effects as I can. Now, when you're rolling stuff, ideally you would want your most valuable stuff towards the top and then your least valuable stuff towards the bottom. So if you do decide to push more of the levels onto your main module versus your assist module, because you're not getting as much of a percent, you can do that. You can make that sacrifice and move stuff over. But right now I just have it at 201 so I can have the maximum number of slots total unlocked, and then kind of benefiting from both ends of stuff. And what you're going to unlock is also going to really depend on where you're at in the game. So if you're more of an effective hit point build, you know, maybe unlocking stuff like the armor assist module is going to be the play for you. You can push a lot more of the effective hit point related stuff as a result of unlocking the armor module. Versus, you know, any of the other things. You know, generator, you're probably going to unlock because you want econ related stuff. Core is an all-rounder. You can't go wrong with it. I think it's pretty universally useful. So if you're building this up, it's going to help everywhere, especially for the substats, because you can get econ out of substats, you can get damage out of substats on core. It's a really nice all-rounder. Now, originally I put this up to 34%, and I put it up to 34% because I wanted the extra death wave quantity. If you don't need that, I wouldn't worry about that threshold. But for myself, I think I'm going to try to push, as like one of my goals, this is much farther down the line, probably about 67%, so I could get maybe a second death wave quantity. That could be kind of cool. It may or may not be needed depending on the modules that I use. Speaking of modules, there's supposed to be a new batch that are going to start getting released on the 26th of this month. So I don't know what those are. I don't know how those are going to change the meta. So a lot of my advice right now is just kind of assuming not a lot changes, but I'm assuming that from what I can see, hybrid's going to become more viable, and some people are actually doing pretty well with a hybrid build in tournament. Personally, tournament, if I was going to go glass cannon, I think maybe having space displacer might be a really good assist mod. And then maybe for farming, I might end up using sharp fortitude, but again, we don't know what's happening next. We don't know what's coming out on the 26th. Maybe it's absolute garbage. Maybe it's actually pretty good. We don't know. But a lot of the meta that we're seeing right now could just drop and could be completely flipped on its head on the 26th. So we'll wait and see on that. Wow, this is 23 minutes. There's so much stuff in this, and just trying to dissect everything is like, even for me. I hope you guys found that informative and useful. I tried to distill it down into like the most useful, like, where do I think the meta is gonna go? But there's so many unanswered questions that are just on the tip of the horizon that we'll just kind of find out. I hope you guys found that useful, and I will catch you later.